first, Shreyanshi, take us through what's happening in the US, because yet another day of stellar moves coming in.
Absolutely, it's quite interesting what is playing out in the US. And when you see the move on Tuesday, then Tuesday marked a second straight winning session for the broad S&P 500 and tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite as well, which continued recovering from their recent losing streaks. When you look at the blue chip Dow, then that closed the session more than 260 points higher, or 0.7% up as well. And when you look at S&P 500 and Nasdaq, they of course gained more than 1% each. Now, Visa and Texas Instruments jumped more than 2% and 6% respectively on the back of stronger than expected earnings. So that's the kind of move that we saw for those two counters. But those are the latest in a solid earnings season so far. So that is part of a larger trend with more than 1 out of every 5 S&P 500 listed firm done reporting as of Tuesday evening in the US. And of those that have already posted results, more than 3 out of 4 have exceeded Wall Street expectations as well. So that's the kind of strength that you're seeing when it comes to the earnings season in the US. Of course, earnings will remain a focus for investors going forward as well. You have Boeing, Hasbro that is slated to report before the bell, and after that you do have Meta Platforms as well as Ford and IBM after the bell reporting their numbers as well. Now, the yield on the 10-year treasury was down 2.1 basis points to 4.602%, and that is something that we saw after investors passed fresh manufacturing data and also awaited further insight into the state of the economy. But moving on then, when you look at the move coming in for the European markets, European stocks closed higher with the benchmark stock 600 index ending the session up by 1.1%. And when you look at DAX as well, that had a 1.6% gain coming in. So solid gain coming in for DAX as well. And when you look at CAC also, that was up 0.8%. But you know, the stellar move came in for UK's FTSE because that set a second straight record close. So that's the kind of strength that you're seeing in the European markets as well, Snehi.
Well, absolutely, and let's also take a look at what's happening in the world of crude and gold. And the one place that we had our focus on was the WTI crude, because that briefly fell below the 50-day moving average for the first time since early February. WTI briefly dipped below the 50-day moving average of $81.22 per barrel earlier in the session, and US crude oil moved nearly 2% higher yesterday to top $83 a barrel on optimism that weak manufacturing data could accelerate interest rate cuts. Lots of factors are playing in on crude prices yesterday. The geopolitical factors in the background, they keep going on. But yesterday, what was in focus was the manufacturing data coming out of the US. Now, US crude oil moved higher by 2%, like I mentioned earlier. And the move higher comes after the WTI hit a session low of 80.89, but spiked sharply after that. And 80.89 was the lowest level since March of this year as well. And US oil prices also briefly dipped below that 50 DMA for the first time since early February. Now, US oil prices are still below this year's high of $87.62 a barrel when traders bid up prices on fears of a war between Israel and Iran scaling up. Those concerns have largely dissipated as Iran and Israel have signaled that they are not interested in a bigger war after trading tit-for-tat strikes earlier this month. On the other hand, the other thing that aided the oil prices, especially WTI crude, was the US manufacturing activity, which hit a 4-month low of 49.9 in April. This is according to the S&P Global Flash and US Composite PMI. A reading below 50, remember, it indicates a slight contraction, so that is what was seen coming in from the US. And oil prices turned higher as data shows slowing manufacturing activity, as this supports the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates later this year. Low borrowing costs typically stimulate the economy and thereby crude demand. So well, that is what is happening when it comes to the crude front. But while we did see interesting moves coming in on WTI, let's also take a look at what's happening on the Brent front, because we did see some increase coming in over there as well, and Brent as of now at $88.38 per barrel. But while